Ladies and gentlemen, with this now we are heading towards our another insightful session, which is based on harmonizing digital transformation and ESG. डिजिटल परिवर्तन और ESG को सुसंगत बनाना और इस विषय पर बातचीत करने के लिए मैं मंच पर आमंत्रित करती हूँ मिस्टर राजेश पंचाल, हेड IT, Inox AP. I request Mr. Rajesh Panchal to kindly grace the stage with your valuable presence. With over 33 years of experience in global IT leadership, he has driven organizational growth by leveraging IT business process integration, digitalization, and IT architecture. He has successfully formulated and implemented IT strategies including cloud and mobility solutions and played a key role in mergers, acquisitions, and regulatory compliance. I request Mr. Rajesh Panchal to kindly be with us. Okay. I request Mr. Vinod Chandani, CIO, Patel Engineering Limited, to kindly join us on the stage. So we welcome you. He specializes in using design thinking and digital transformation to solve complex problems and drive capital efficient growth. He is skilled in implementing large scale initiatives that enhance data visibility, automative workflows, and improve operational efficiency. He is passionate about continuous improvement, talent development, employee engagement, and fostering diversity and inclusion. I also request Mr. Suhail Ghai, Director and Chief Digital and Information Office, Max Insurance Company Limited, to kindly join us on the stage. Sir, we welcome you. For over 20 years, he has led IT and digital transformation projects across BFSI and FMCG sectors. He has extensive experience in ERP implementation, supply chain optimization, and managing IT portfolios. He excels in aligning IT strategies with business goals, managing IT budgets, and overseeing large-scale technology projects. I also welcome Mr. Akshay Kumar Patel, General Manager, IT and CISO and TPC, to kindly join us on the stage. He has extensive experience in managing IT and OT system, covering applications, infrastructure, and cybersecurity across NTPC's plants and offices. He has obtained a specialization in cybersecurity from US CERT and plays a key role in coordinating cybersecurity efforts for thermal power generation utilities across India. And last but not the least, as a moderator for this session, may I please call upon stage Dr. Gursharan Dhanjal, Vice Chairman, SKOCH Group. Sir, I request you to kindly join us on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Gursharan Dhanjal leads research projects, impacts assessments, and field studies in the areas of governance, MSME, women empowerment, entitlements, tribal development, financial inclusion, and so on. Given his expertise, he has been invited by the Government of India to sit on various committees, and he also heads the SKOCH Center of Excellence on Tribal Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our expertise here, and I request Dr. Gursharan Dhanjal to kindly begin the session. So,
please have a seat. So as it is always said, there is a story behind every story. So what we've been discussing since morning, which is the indices, whether it is done globally or otherwise indexes, which is done by various stakeholders in India, there's always a backdrop to it. So let's go back a little bit. In fact, where we stand today, wherein the entire narrative on these global indices is stitched against India, the very genesis of that can be found immediately post-independence and post-Cold War with the founding of Bretton Woods system. There were two important elements to it, if you would recall. One was the formation of IMF, and second one was the setting up of IBRD, which was the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which later on came to be known as the World Bank. Now, why I'm drawing reference to this is that these two institutions were created only to help the devastated economies which went through the World War I and World War II. IMF was to correct the damages which were sustained as a result of the Great Economic Depression, followed by the World War, as I said. And the World Bank was to, the IBRD, was to help reconstruct the devastated economies. Later on, 1974, it was reconstituted as the World Bank, and the rest is history. The point is, they have never looked at global south. That's the reason why there has always been a global south and global north. So the north-south dialogue actually was founded to bridge the haters between the two. But that still remains too far-fetched and wanting. Having said so, come close, 20 years, 20, 25 years. India started opening up in 1991 and started to have a say in the global economy. We came out of the Inspector Raj and a closed economy. Soon, we were faced with the challenges of having to have found a place, a foothold in the global system, and it was difficult to find. So when today we are recognized as one of the top 10 economies, fastest growing, already reached top 5, having displaced many, it is not digested easily by everyone, and particularly the global north. That how come we are moving so fast? So how do we put roadblocks to it? These roadblocks emerge in the form of these indices, which is what we are not saying that we are trying to correct, but we are trying to correct the narrative. How can we do that? So the three options that Mr. Kochhar talked about in the morning, either look at what we have achieved and correct your indicators, or otherwise something very specific to India, add to those indicators, or let's look at greenfield options. So the greenfield options are very many. So just about 10, 15 years ago, when India started growing, India as such also has been very sensitive to all these developments, said that time has come when we have to make our businesses responsible. So 1911, for the first time, we talked in terms of national voluntary guidelines for ESG. It was absolutely unknown, what is ESG? While we were talking that, the global north was talking about creating responsibility accounting framework, which became a standard. So we have been as many years behind them. We saw that coming, and 2018 we converted it into a responsibility framework, which is what we have been talking about since morning, to become a national guideline. But by then, global north already had notched two paces ahead. They had created the reporting standards. Those reporting standards, taking cue from them, reporting as well as the accountability, we laid the foundation of BRSR guidelines 21 and 23. These became mandatory. Having said so, where are we today? GRI, which is the Global Reporting Initiative 21, we were talking of BRSR, still a smaller portion of it. They were talking this big. And next year, which is 2025, GRI is going to come to India. And that's exactly where our fight is. So when we say that how do we harmonize digital transformation with ESG, this becomes a very big question mark. Why? Because if you look at all the global standards, digital transformation does not find its place of equality. It only remains limited to environmental, social, and governance. So we started looking into this and created 500 plus indicators on which we studied it. We have been studying it for the last 1 year and created our first India Involved Index, which is not only talking about environmental, social, and governance, it's also talking about corporate excellence. It's also talking about corporate digital responsibility, and it is also talking about digital transformation, because without that, there cannot be a credible ESG. So this is the framework that we have created. It cuts across security, digital responsibility, sustainability, economic digital responsibility, technology, risk management. So if you look at all these indicators, ESG would be a small form of that, small part of that. Meaning to say that this is a superset of all the frameworks that we need to work on. This has been further broken down if you look at this, whether it is CDR, Sustainable Development Goals, corporate digital responsibility, ESG. Important element is even human rights, what the Chairman Human Rights was talking about in the morning. It is about dignity of life and it is about quality of life. Without that, there cannot be any human rights. And that is something digitally ensured by all the organizations. So that becomes your corporate digital responsibility. Further breakdown. So when we look at all of that, SDGs exist as they are. But when we look at CSR, ESG, human rights and artificial intelligence, we find that across these indicators, 58.33% overlap with the framework that we have created. This tells us that we are on the right path. This also tells us that India needs to correct its narrative along these lines, and there is much more to it because it's going to be a collective effort. Not only SKOCH will be doing it, it's done collectively with the stakeholders, including yourselves. This is our ethics policy. I stop here, but the point that I would like to bring home is that when we talk about all these things, where exactly do we stand and what is it that we need to do? So my first question to the panel is, we'll go one by one and do a quick roundup on that, that these three areas that we talked about, do you find them that these are complementary and can have to be seen in conjunction with each other? So let me start with you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and SKOCH. This is true privilege, and to have a panel like this. Join at the hip, of course. We don't have an option. For everything you mentioned, it's the SDGs of the UN, and ESG is just it's an extraction of that in a way. But if you go back and see worldwide, of the 17 SDGs, only 15% as of 2023 are even on track, if at all. And the rest of them are either transgressing or they've completely stalled. Where are we in that? I think it's digital transformation and ESG efforts. It's so critical for us to actually talk about it, for one reason, that the fact that all of us sitting here today even understand what it is, because we are the privileged few. Privileged not because we are just here, privileged because also we work in organizations where it's just the top 500 or the 100 which are listed actually have to talk about BRSR or ESG. The rest of the population doesn't even know about it. So if they are not going to be included in this privilege, how are you going to make a difference to the people who actually need that difference to come into their lives? So the one thing that digital transformation does, in my opinion, because I've been working in this for the last 25 years, is that it brings transparency to the accountability itself. So if we go down this path and actually harness it, we can actually leverage everything where we are after or we are under, provided we give it surface. I think that would be a fantastic standpoint, and I don't think we can go back. Here, like I said, we are privileged few, but at the same time, we are all facing the global warming, right? Everybody, from top to bottom. If all these 17 SDGs or the ESGs, whatever we are facing, each one of us are facing, so we don't have a choice. And I think it's a fantastic beginning.
True. When we talk about BRSR, you are one organization which mandatorily have to be filing it. And truly speaking, there is hardly any capacity with any organization today to be able to do that assessment on BRSR, whether you are actually compliant or not. So more often than not, it becomes a tick mark item. Having to say, the SDGs that Vinod talked about, those SDGs map pretty well on ESG. And in India, CSR is mandatory. So we are much ahead than anybody else, anywhere else in the world, which is what they are reporting as ESG and we are reporting as a CSR, not finding its place in the BRSR.
Now, thank you all first for inviting me to this panel. I feel privileged. Now, I'll give some practical aspect to it. Now, when we say digital transformation, what actually it entails? It basically is from paper to computer. So, at the ground level, the more digitalization you are having, the less paper you use. That is direct benefit to environment. Second, equitability. Like, once you make digital transformation, things are available on everybody's, wherever they are. That means somebody sitting far from this place will not be that much inequitable for him. That means when we say digital transformation, it is equitable, it is environment friendly, and transparency, as my predecessor said. So this digital transformation is the base work, or that is what is propelling India to a greater height, as I feel. We can say digital economy, digital, everything digital is helping India grow faster. Now, this will help sustainable development. Like in our company, I will tell, in 2018, we started paperless movement. And now I can proudly say there is no paper movement in our company. Now everything is paperless. Now to that extent, this is a sustainable goal we are working towards it. Then each and every document, each and every proposal has a marking which department it is helping and what actually sustainable goal it is achieving. That thing is recorded on that. Now to that extent, this will help in a long term all ESG and for achieving those SDGs. Now, in this context, it is, and of course, all India is in right path to that extent in these endeavors. Thank you.
So when it comes to, I'll come to you after him. You have been a consumer of technology to a great extent, wherein you're also on cloud, you're using cloud-based services. So how do you see the digital transformation bit already being reported as sustainability in your sustainability reports?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. I think, as the people said before me, digital transformation today, in our own way, contributes a lot to both the environment and sustainability agenda. One big thing is this, that earlier, and I'm talking about my own industry, which is the life insurance industry. Here, you want to write a risk for your life. So when you are, this is not like a health and yearly contract. When you give somebody policy at 25, you are taking a risk at him probably till 65 or 75. Now imagine interest rates, imagine mortality, imagine things like COVID will come in. Now, when you do this, I think there was a time you needed tons and tons of paper. You need to identify the individual. Thanks to today, the great India, the digital infrastructure, the public infrastructure, Aadhaar, eKYC, you have practically eliminated the need for paper to establish anybody's identity. You don't need to meet people. Similarly, you look at the banking system. Today, you don't have to collect those checks, those cancelled checks of people, amount of paper, amount of couriers moving around, people going around to collecting them. Think of it like a simple penny drop. UPI is there for everyone. So as you look at now you look at medical. Medical is a big change. Aabha is coming in, the government's whole thing on Ayushman Bharat, right? Medical records will get digitized. If you need to assess somebody's health, you don't need to go and make him do a test again. Now, as you move the value chain, You are more and more digitizing your processes. You are taking paper out. You're taking the need for meeting people out. What used to earlier take weeks to issue a policy or somebody, today is in 50% of the cases, it is issued instantaneously and with proper risk assessment. 85% of the cases, you don't even have to assess the risk. Risk is using AI, the risk is inbuilt. And finally, as technology people, we are also big consumers of power, of infrastructure. Traditionally, all of us used to have our own data centers, which used to run 24/7 with no sharing. Everybody used to run it, even if you don't need it, and lean times. And thanks today to the cloud and the whole consolidation of the infrastructure, you are only using it as you are paying for it and using it when you need it. Think of it, you are bringing it together, consolidating it, you are reducing your need for the power. While it's a dichotomy on one side, AI is coming in, there are GPUs and it is consuming more power. On the other side, how do you optimize it? That is a great balance, and digital today has a great place to play. I think digital transformation gains from the public infrastructure and has a big contribution back to the ESG agenda.
Let me ask you a supplementary. So you said that most of the transactions now are moving on app, right? So if I have an app in my phone, similarly I will have 15 other apps as well. So you alone, as well as 15 others put together, are making me a digital addict. Because I'll keep on hopping from one app to another to see, because I'm getting anxious, I'm getting, I'm having anxiety about as to what next, what's new. So how are you taking care of the digital wellness, not only of your employees, but the people who are using your services? So this is part of this corporate digital responsibility, as well as in the real true sense of the term, digital transformation.
Okay, I think one big win-win part is that gone are the days when you want people to come to your apps. Today, for example, many of us are available what people are doing. For example, if you use a WhatsApp, you don't need to come to my app for it. You don't need to come to my app, and I don't need to bombard you for messages. If you want to talk to me, right, you're going to say hi to me on WhatsApp. I'm going to ask you a question, what do you need me for? And if you just want to understand your premium payment or your policy, you can download this. So the way that information getting consumed is also changing. Today, thanks to a lot of information about people, you don't have to constantly bombard people with reminder messages. You can understand consumer behavior. Somebody uses your app, he will pay on his own. Somebody already has an ECS, you don't need to tell him. See, this digital also gives you the power to understand your consumer and to be making sure that you can segment them and make sure you're very targeted to reach out to them. You are absolutely right. Nobody's going to download 25 apps. Rather, today if you use an iPhone, you will know the least used app is anyway deleted and put it in a corner. You won't even realize this. So therefore, how can this world of super apps come in, the world of platforms come in, like a WhatsApp or something, or a Telegram, and this is how you interact. And the lastly is that from a corporate social responsibility perspective, any financial institution is the fiduciary accountability of safeguarding the data of people. I think that's a very, very important thing in digital. This is all about data, and this is sensitive data. As an organizations, how do you, use the data? There are new data protection laws in this country. How do you use the data? How do you make sure you have a customer consent for everything? You store them, you don't share it. And within your organization, it's a very need to know basis. I think that is also a big part of the whole digital responsibility for organizations.
Sure. I'll come back to you. A couple of more questions I have in mind. But let me move over to Inox. When we talk about the comprehensive economic impact, several things come into the picture. The first thing itself is reduction in consumption of energy, reduction in carbon, improving the internal processes in the systems so that your total cost of ownership reduces over a period of time. Superimpose that on CDR as well as ESG. So you find that everything becomes totally connected. So how are you leveraging it?
Sure. Thanks, Coach, and the team here to get me on this esteemed panel. I'm somewhere as an organization, as an individual connected to all three of my co-panelists. It's a coincidence. Basically, I represent Inox as of today, but I'll give you past background, what was there in my experience, which was agriculture, and then the Inox. So, when we speak about Inox, it is basically theaters and ledgers, but no, we are Inox Air Product. We are the company who are India's leading industrial gas, and India's 65% of the population was saved because of Inox Air Product. So this is the context I am putting here. This is something which you all should know what has happened in the background, and this will give you a brief prospect of how the digital transformation, the whole ecosystem work for the country, and even the ESG. Second point, when you read on the table, there is a study report given. If you can open and see, the India adoption on environment is around 59%. So in last couple of years, you have seen a lot of the solar things happening, the green and hydrogen happening, and a lot of things have been happening. But the back end is definitely the support system is, the digital transformation. Second point is the social media. So 36% is the penetration in our country, which is done by the SKOCH. So I'm very well acknowledging, and most of us did it. And governance, which is the 5%, and which is the concern for me as an individual today, which I will conclude. So this is the today research which is given by SKOCH. Coming specifically to the pandemic, how it happened, what it did, where we are and where we are today, we all know. There is a video storyline, Helping India Breathe. Whenever you have time, it is 21 minutes, you can see it. But coming on the gist of the prospect, because this was connecting each and every 140 crore of the population of the country. The PMOs of the country and the CMs of the company and the health minister of the country were very much concerned, how can we save life? That was the main concern. The biggest of biggest hospital you can name can save around 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 beds with oxygen. And per city, it was like 30,000, 40,000. So this was the challenge for the country. Now, we as an organization were ahead of time. When I say ahead of time means, most of you should know, oxygen is stored in minus 183 to 190 degrees Celsius minus. And it is manufactured in gas form and it is transmitted in the liquid form. Now, when I am talking about transmission means it's under very high pressure. It is under a container. Now, when the incident happened, you all must have seen the jumbo centers. So we as a company were again ahead of time. We had our cryogenic storage tanks which were available. This was the investment which management did a few decades ahead. And we had a lot of orders since exports were blocked. So we had orders. So all these storage tanks which we were having in stock and few of our competitors, we install in the jumbo center. And one jumbo center can cater to 5,000 to 10,000, 20,000. Because this was huge, huge capacity of storage where many people could go into a jumbo center and save life. Now, this was the first solution which happened. Second was like, if we have a vehicle which moves around and gives oxygen to individual hospital, it will take time. It will consume hell of a time and save less number of life. But if a tanker goes and saves 10,000 of a container, so movement of container and getting back the empty container was the second challenge which was addressed through this jumbo center. Third important point was how this visibility will happen. Who will manage it? So I have my North Regional Head, Mr. Vinod Singh here. He was front-ending. We had 4 zones, 4 war rooms which was created. And every war room was given a digital visibility of our plant, our capacity, how it is being done. Every employee, like everybody was quarantined, but coincidentally our organization, nobody was quarantined. We were there to save life for the country, so government supported and management supported. Our MD, Mr. Siddharjan, he lead from the front, he took the control of complete war room. And the visibility which was there for around 200, 300 meters for our containers and all was nearly narrowed down with the use of technology to around 50 to 60 meters. So that gives the visibility, how can we do, where can we do, who can do, and which plant has material can be disposed. And every unit NMQ which was manufactured was supplied to save life. So this whole transformation happened, ESGs and the social responsibility along with the economical, along with the digital, along with environmental impact. Because just imagine if there are 100 bodies lying and nobody knows in a village and there is no oxygen supplied there. So those were also taken care of. There were the authorities, all key authorities were there. Everybody joined hand. There was no BJP, there was no Congress. It was one nation, one country. I think so that was something we see a big way. And that was one of the reasons where we saw that our country today, 65% population contribution is from us, where we are here. We know our few near one, dear ones passed away. But with this whole ecosystem, we as a company and we as an economy and we as a country, played a very vital role. So that is what I would like to conclude, that yes, there are a lot of things, which are unheard, unturned as a story. And there are goosebump stories when you see that video, you will come to know, helping India breathe. But digital transformation definitely does that. Coming specifically on the governance part, which is 5%, this is my major concern and worry. Today, most of us don't know. I'll take a simple example of ticket CCTV. Every majority of the prime A-class cities have got CCTV camera with auto challan. Now, if there is a right challan, I'm supposed to pay because I have defaulted. But am I paying? That is the first question. There is a system which is there. There is a portal which is there. There is a message which is coming. There is the image which is coming. Where is my social responsibility? Where is my governance? Second thing, it is not one-sided. I will flip the side of the coin. If it is a wrong challan, do they hear me? I have not faulted. So it's both the side of the coin. So governance adoption is not only from one side, from the authority side, or not only from an individual side. It's a complete ecosystem. There has to be a solution. Like Aadhaar, everybody knows eKYC and Aadhaar linkage and all, how it has helped life, banking, industrial, financial institution. So something such solution, when it comes on the table, ownership and governing to it, and responsibility. Everybody taking responsibility is very, very important. So I would like to put my thought on governance. How can we all as a team can...
No, in fact, you have a point there. I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Just to quickly respond to two things that you talked about on the governance bit. On the digital transformation, what you said is right, and you actually happen to be known better as suppliers of the medical oxygen during COVID time, so nobody's questioning it. The point is that to what extent have you actually been able to leverage, change your systems internally, bring in more efficiencies, and having transformed yourself digitally, reducing the cost? Because ultimately, it's the comprehensive economic impact as a result of technology. What you also talked about, that when you're moving over to a cloud, this is on a need-based. Otherwise, you are 24/7 plugged in and consuming energy and spending resources, which otherwise is switch on and off as per requirement. And then you don't become the guzzler of energy. I'll come to you on energy. You are sitting there nodding very vigorously on that. Yeah, a quick one from you.
So we being privately held with Air Product as in USA as our entity. So I will not speak on numbers, but the headings I can definitely speak. So basically, very right question. Like we see the graph, like dispatches per day, and the quantity. Like 80% of Inox business is industrial. And if you know, when pandemic wave 2 came, the PMO said industrial is closed. That is our main business, bread and butter, and 20% is medical. And boss always says कि medical life बचाते हैं, इसमें ज़्यादा नहीं, सबको देना है. So this was one thing, like catering to the medical of the country, and the spikes of dispatches happening, which was not envisaged, because we had our fixed business which was monitoring. So the first challenge was on the logistic. And when I say logistic, just don't think, imagine that it is a empty container getting filled, going, emptying again, coming back from various hospitals. Don't think like that. There is a route, there is a fuel cost, there is a driver efficiency, and these are very, very high pressured, containers. So not driving at a specific speed. So these are the 4 areas. So when we were doing this pandemic, so we wanted the best of it class. So we learned a lot of things. In constraint, how can we improve our fuel efficiency? We constrained what are the challenging tap points for the vehicle driver. We were doing monitoring, training, everything was given. But this was something our learning which we noted.
What I understand from what you're saying is that ultimately it has to add value to the company, it has to add value to the shareholder, it has to add value to the investor. Right?
Exactly.
So the 3 counts.
Perfect.
That's exactly where
Perfect.
the digital transformation helps to do ESG better. Coming to you, how do you think adoption of ESG actually helps to improve a company's performance on 3 counts, these 3 what we just talked about, and also improving the supply chain management?
For those of us who, so I'll tell you what we do. We make dams and we make tunnels. And hydro is where you have the mountains, That's where we are. And the mountains at the borders, we work in the Himalayas. So we have a very strange tagline within the company. We say first we go and then the goats come. Because we work in such remote areas that sometimes we are the first ones to go there. In fact, Prime Minister Modi just inaugurated the Sela Pass tunnel, which was made by us. How does it affect the business directly? That tunnel, the location was by Tawang, and for the most part, it is sub-zero levels. To encourage people to go there is a challenge. Because this generation, where I'm talking about the age group who comes out of college and who's now in their mid-30s and 40s, unlike the previous generation, they are so used to the digital connect that they will not go to areas where, unlike their fathers and their mothers who would leave their homes and go there for the benefit, they would want to be attached to the family because they are born with the phone. These are areas where you don't get internet. We could manage to get it with the help of the government and the BRO. And I'm happy to say we completed that entire project with more than 500 people being on that site, working in sub-zero. We could support them with nothing else but the actual ESG in place. Some form or the other. Some gentlemen here said, "ये तो हम पहले से करते आ रहे हैं." वो जो छोटी-छोटी चीज़ पहले से करते आ रहे हैं ना, we've just given them a formal name today, ESG. That is why today, when we work on this side in Arunachal and Sela. In J&K, we are building a dam which is about 70, 80 stories tall. These are areas which were never inhabited before. There is a cultural difference between the East and the West. So if you talk about the environment, first let's talk about the people who work for us, then the partners. Because since we are traded, the offshoot of that, obviously the shareholder gets the benefit. The company wins, the shareholder wins. But the person who wins, again coming to the previous point, like I said, all these SG, any of these 17 months, it has to percolate down to the last person standing. They contribute to our bread, we make them better. So how did we go about it? One, the first goal is to get connectivity up there. How are we getting connectivity? Through satellite, through phones. So a person who's going to work, his life, he comes back, talks to his loved ones, output is automatically better for humanity and for production. Either ways. How are we doing it with data? We're getting live data, we move to the cloud. So we no longer have that digital footprint on multiple servers across. We are on the cloud, so now data is accessible anywhere. So we are not waiting to make a decision. Progress in project optimization. Today we work in very large projects which have design in it. We work with Mother Nature. When things go wrong, we don't have that much time to make 500 people wait on the site. Central cloud storage now helps us do things better. So when you talk about the environment, direct impact from just the computation point of view, the social point of view, it's just not the connectivity. I'll give you a small example. We were working in J&K in 2015. There's a tunnel that we were working on. And we went to the quarry to the last point, and I could just see one truck go up a mountain. 4 years later, we went there and I saw an entire village. They were working in barter at that point, at that area on the north, just because of the region initially. But the walnuts used to come down, and the lady of the house just used to see rice go up because it was barter. She rarely saw money. 4 years down the line, I'm pretty sure she was one of the shopkeepers there. Suddenly there was a village. So does digital transformation, because now we could connect. There was GPay going up there because we were also offering the internet that we were using down to the area that actually was where we were working. So now not only we work there, but now there were school systems starting to come up in the remote areas. Governance. I'm very happy to say that today, inclusion, I'm a very big proponent of inclusion, especially with women. Today, our chairman, our MD, our head of HR, they're all women. And what difference that makes in it brings a sensitive nature to everything we do with empathy. Until we don't have that in place, where we are questioned on all those factors, we can never think beyond. Otherwise, it's revenue, return, and how well are we doing at work. So covering all these three aspects, and where does the country go with this? Because you make a difference to one family, it makes a difference to an entire community. So for me, digital transformation is a means of giving power to the hand. Yes, does it get addictive? Sure. So did we talk about when internet came out. We can put guardrails in it. That's our privilege to what we are doing. Like Madam said, can we educate? Yes, of course we can. But are we taking that on ourselves to educate? There's a lot of responsibility that comes to us, just like when the internet came out. Today, we are not questioning whether we should have the internet, right? Today, AI is coming in. Everybody's talking about taking away jobs. But we are not talking about AI actually helping us upskill ourselves. It will get there. We cannot go back. We can only go forward.
Yeah, you rightly said that when it comes to adoption of new technologies, these come along with the existing challenges. Yes, they do lead to addiction. They do lead to, internet happened and people got addicted to it, but there is a flip side, which is the improvement in productivity. Then when computers happened, it was feared that you're going to lose jobs. There's going to be massive retrenchment. But soon enough, computers created more jobs than ever expected. And same is now being expected of new technologies like artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. But to start with, that means to say that we'll have to up our capability, our capacity of absorption, and our own capacity up to that level wherein we are able to compete in a world which is challenging us from machine side. Right. So we'll soon get there. So this is something which is going to A, help improve the bottom line, B, your compliances, and C, ultimately your reporting standards, which is what all four of you are doing. Yeah, you were saying
I have one more thing to add. The amount of inclusion, I mean, again, I'm talking about privilege of actually being on this platform plus being in a company that actually has to report BRSR and has to do ESG. There's a whole plethora of companies who don't have to do it, they're not even aware of it. I mean, we were doing BRSR, so I went to one of the sites which I said, and we do hold a town hall, and I just asked one thing, that do you know what you're contributing to? That was my only question, and nobody knew. Nobody knew about it. But when I said you are actually, I mean, we're talking about ESG now, but I
have a flip question.
Yeah.
When you are doing all of that, do you know that you are becoming compliant globally to the standards?
I was just going to say,
the answer is no. So we start doing it under compulsion.
Yes.
Since it has been made mandatory for all of us to do a tick mark item in my balance sheet, along with that, I have to do a BRSR reporting as well. When I said to start with, there is hardly any capacity. So the CAs and the people who are now just going through the auditors, a kind of bringing in a global experience because people sitting in India do not have much. So they are the ones who are going to be dictating it. So are we safeguarding ourselves or we are getting into another trap is the question. So I'll come to you. I want to ask Patel Saab, on corporate governance, in our report itself, we say that the PSUs, the government-owned enterprises, they do well on the corporate governance, while in industry, they do well on environmental and social, because social is kind of a philanthropy which has been added to them since 2013 mandatorily as part of CSR, not being reported as ESG because that does not find place in BRSR, but actually worldwide top organizations in the world, including Microsoft and the Apple and the Dells of the world, they are reporting their CSR as ESG, including digital transformation, which is not part of your reporting. Your corporate governance is good, but your reporting is bad from ESG. What do you have to say?
See, when we say CSR and CSR is a mandatory thing. Certain percentage of your profit has to be booked as CSR, and you have to necessarily do it. So I think that answers the first question, why it is good. It has to be good. This is a compliance requirement. Now ESG, yes, we report. I don't know, this reporting ESG and all these things, particularly environment, but I can say, after this digital revolution, the visibility at regulatory level has gone up, much up, rather than even when you say 5 years back, actually CPCB and this thing, NGT didn't have visibility towards the industries, what at all are the actual thing. Now they take videograph of water level, air level, real time, direct. They don't want through any channel. Now that is the level of visibility they have. So that helps environment level, I can say yes. The visibility increased and compliance will certainly, this has to improve. Now governance part, yes, PSU governance part actually doesn't reported much because things are in control because see, you are anywhere regulated completely. Power sector, I can say it is fully regulated entity. Everything right from your pricing to billing and your demand and everything is regulated. Now governance part is taken as granted for this. It is default for this. We don't have to do additional things for this governance. So that's what I feel.
So moving over to you, from the perspective of this transformation, which is what we are now going through, we have a digital roadmap in front of us, wherein we say that year 1 we did this, year 2 we are doing this, year 3, year 4, and year 5. So the perspective, business plan along with the digital transformation plan. The challenge remains the same: how to reduce cost, improve compliance, how to leverage technology, and improve the shareholder value. What are you doing about this?
I think if you look at the entire flow of this, right? For any today, you know, what does digital impact? One, digital can get you more revenue. Second, digital can step change the customer experience. Third, digital can get you operational efficiencies, which is what you alluded to. Although all three help to grow business. Fourth, digital at times does a lot of, which are subsets of it, is a lot of disintermediation, which is the fact that you don't need so many actors in the chain. And last, digital also creates personal empathy, because digital you have the power to actually take n is equal to 1, to have a personalized communication with everybody. Now, when you look at the power of digital and what digital does to this, I think a lot of us started with digital first helping you grow revenue, and that's how companies look at their plans. A lot of companies built direct to consumer channels, e-commerce, and you saw that happening. Then slowly digital started coming out in your operating cost, which, as you said, how can it be more efficient? How can it reduce manual labor? I alluded to points like remove paper, remove quality control checks, inbuilt, and this is where public infrastructure comes and helps you quite a bit today, right? Digital payments, you don't need people to reconcile. So therefore, a lot of activities have become either redundant or have become this thing. I think as we go to the next level of digital, a lot of work is nowadays, how do you expand the footprint? Today, there are a lot of underserved segments. For example, financial literacy, the formal financial sector was not available to a lot of people in far-flung areas. Even a lot of companies were only targeting people in the big cities. Now, thanks to the public infrastructure, thanks to digitization of the internet, I say Aadhaar, UPI, there today you can actually reach out to those segments which were earlier not included. Now, one side, it helps the companies grow, find new sources of revenue. On the second side, from a larger country perspective, it also brings people in the fold, and I think that's progress for all. I think finally, to me, digital is not an end, it's a mean to an end. I virtually say in few years from now, you will not have digital separate from your main business. Today, a lot of times when we think digital, we think there is an A business, analog, and there is digital. I think the way things are happening, everything will become what we call phygital, which is a mix of physical and digital. Finally, we are human beings. We cannot always be digital. So there has to be, depending on the category, the business model, you are going to have a mix of physical interaction, digital interactions. Where do you find your sweet spot? I think that will depend. But I can all tell you that for long-term sustainability of businesses, digital is a way to go. And digital is also now becoming next level intelligence and not digital. I think what we did till now was barely converting what was manual into an automated workflow. I think wow now is that can you be intelligent? And how do you, and the value you generate from that, how can you give it back to the consumer and the customer? And also, ultimately, who are your three stakeholders? One is your shareholders, one is your customer, and third is society and the government. And how do you do that?
Yeah. So one last question before we go. Let me start with you. How are you preparing yourself for 2025?
It's AI all the way. AI and cybersecurity. That are the two things we're really focusing on. One actually interdependent of the other, because for everything that we talked about, there's physical security, and today we actually tie that up with, it's strange when we talk about cybersecurity today. I was leading safety till about some time back. And as a sixth number that we had this, that, and the other, and we had tied in cybersecurity because your identity is at stake. So 2025 is all about cybersecurity and AI all the way, and using those platforms to leverage all the three places, right? I mean, that's the way to go.
Patel sir?
Yeah, we will be improving upon what said cybersecurity is the way to go. And the development work, digitalization, digital transformation, particularly in monitoring, like drone surveillance, and a new wage of having businesses, like taking digital twins. This type of things we are actually going towards, which will improve efficiency and cut down the time frame for new projects, because power is now there is a mandate. You have to create power much faster pace. We cannot afford to wait 4 years for that power plant to come. So there will be efficiency is required to be improved. So that's what we are working on.
Mr. Panchal?
2025 we will be focusing on couple of key points. Definitely security and AI is one of the 40, but more important is to identify, like we have got our system application in place. What are the areas which are not being used, and how can we leverage that? Because there is no extra cost, only the effort of awareness, training and deploying them. So that will be one of the area which we will be driving. Second important point is from the manufacturing side is the reactiveness to proactiveness. How do we shift the curve from reactive to proactive? And definitely industry 4.0, IoT, ML, will definitely play a major role. And last part is like, how when we do the digitization and automation and even paperless, when Patel ji said, so the resource which gets free, here we are not talking about eliminating, we are talking about how can we empower that resource to the next level. So training becomes one of the key forte. So that will be the area we will be identifying the key resources within the organization. How can we shift them to the next level, so that they are up to the mark, rather than getting a resource from outside who is, experienced from the external industry. But then if our internal resource, if they get uplifted, I think so that is one of the area where, we will be working with our HR and management and how can we feedback. So 2025 is that.
I think while most of the points are covered, first is building capability. We have a lot of large workforce who have been from non-digital area. How do you build digital capability and digital dexterity in them? That's one. Second, as we said, a lot of digital will shape a lot of ways we change the way we work. How do we reskill our people to the new jobs which will come in? Third is investing largely in data. You can't run intelligence without data. So how do you contain data and secure data in a way secured with consent? And how do you balance this and then finally invest in intelligence? I think that's the way forward for all of us.
I give you one small anecdote. 2004, when the word financial inclusion became fashionable to be talked about, we've been traveling across the country looking at various interventions done by the banks, MFIs, NBFCs, financial institutions. Each and every effort was targeted only at two things: A, providing them credit, and B, giving them livelihood. We did not know that we are documenting the history of financial inclusion in the country. Till such time, it became fashionable to be talked about. Then we realized, oh my gosh, this is called financial inclusion. We've been doing it for the past 5 years. Why am I saying so? All these gentlemen, they talked about their future roadmap, 25, 26, this is what you're going to be focusing on. Realizing very little that this is a part of a larger framework which is coming in globally in the name of corporate digital responsibility. We have picked this framework from 7 countries, researched and created a superset of that. And that superset told us that whatever imperatives we have in order to push either for ESG or for human rights or for digital transformation, they map pretty well on CDR. So meaning to say that while we are doing all our efforts in that direction, philanthropy in India started more than 250 years ago with, and maybe 5,000 years ago when all the these motels, what we call today, it was called sarai or pyau, these were constructed by the local chieftains or the kings of those times. The Tatas and the Birlas, they started philanthropy 200 years ago. And it's US, it became fashionable much, much later. But they were fast enough to institutionalize it, make it a tariff or a non-tariff barrier, throw it on us, saying that now you become compliant. So our role essentially is to become aware as to what we are getting into so that the barriers that we are going to face over a period of time should not be the case. Mandatorily, a PSU has to be good in corporate governance terms. Not that the private sector does not have to be, but they are focused more on transformation, and the rest is a byproduct of that. But net, it leads to the same.